"Sir, can you tell Santa we moved?" said a little boy to the poor single mom's boss on Christmas night. The snow fell in soft, bitter silence, blanketing the sidewalks like a hush over the city. Twinkling Christmas lights blinked from windows and lampposts, but the cheer they promised felt distant, like a song from another room. Lena Carter, 28, clutched the small hand of her 4-year-old son, Sam, as they stepped out onto the icy sidewalk. Her thin jacket barely held back the December wind, and her breath came out in faint clouds. Her blonde hair was tied low beneath a knitted beanie, though several strands had loosened, sticking to her cheeks damp with melted snow. Slung over her shoulder was a worn backpack containing all of Sam's clothes and a few toiletries. That was all they had. Behind them, the apartment door clicked shut. Evicted. The landlord had waited until the sun went down, until the Christmas music from the neighboring building masked the sound of their suitcase bumping down the stairs. The rent had been overdue for 2 months. No more warnings. No more extensions. "Ma'am, I am sorry," he had said, not meeting her eyes, "but I cannot let you stay for free. I have bills too." Lena hadn't argued. There was nothing left to say. For the last year, she had worked double shifts at Pete's Diner, smiling through sore feet and burning joints, trying to scrape together enough to keep the roof over their heads. But minimum wage didn't stretch far in winter, not when most of it went to Sam's inhalers, prescriptions, and the latest hospital bill they couldn't pay. The medical debt collectors called daily now. Every ring of the phone sounded like a countdown. She had tried. God, she had tried. Now, on the coldest night of December, she had run out of time. Sam's small boots crunched in the snow beside her. He dragged a plastic bag behind him with his favorite stuffed bear sticking out the top. They passed glowing storefronts filled with holiday displays, gold ornaments, fake snow, candy canes in oversized jars. Other families walked by in coats too warm, laughter too easy. Lena turned her face away. "Mommy," Sam's voice broke the silence, small and uncertain. "Are we moving?" Lena squeezed his hand, forcing a smile. "Just taking a walk, honey. But why did we pack all our stuff?" She didn't answer right away. They paused under a street lamp as a car passed by, spraying a wave of slush. Lena looked down at her son, his cheeks pink from the cold, his wide brown eyes filled with more knowing than any 4-year-old should have. The bag of toys he carried was too light. Everything they'd left behind had been bought with sacrifice, none of it worth losing over unpaid rent. Sam stopped walking. He looked up at her, his voice a whisper. "Mommy, if we move tonight, will Santa still find us?" Lena's heart cracked like ice beneath a step. She knelt down, ignoring the wet sidewalk soaking through her jeans, and held his cheeks in both hands. "He always finds kind hearts, right, baby?" Sam thought about it. Then he smiled, a little. "I hope he gives you a bag of happiness." Lena laughed, softly. A tear slipped down her face, but she wiped it away before Sam could see. "Me too," she whispered. They kept walking, past closed bookstores, shuttered bakeries, a park bench buried in snow. The city glowed around them with artificial joy, but their steps remained quiet. They had nowhere to go, no one to call. Lena's phone battery was nearly dead, and there was no point in turning it on. Her fingers were numb, her feet ached, but she kept walking because stopping meant giving in. Sam's head drooped slightly. He rubbed his eyes with his sleeve and leaned against her side. Lena adjusted the backpack on her shoulder and wrapped her free arm around him. The night stretched ahead of them, silent, cold, and long. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a tiny ember flickered. It was not hope. Not yet, but it was something close. The wind whipped through the streets like it had something to prove, swirling snow around Miles Blackwell's polished shoes as he walked away from the city's grand theater. The company Christmas gala had ended less than an hour ago, champagne glasses clinking, laughter bouncing off crystal chandeliers, but he had left early, tie loosened, overcoat collar flipped up, a paper bag with uneaten hors d'oeuvres swinging loosely in his hand. It should have been a perfect evening. He had built the restaurant group from the ground up, his name now spoken with admiration in boardrooms and Forbes articles alike. Yet, he felt strangely hollow, as if all the glitter and good press were just noise hiding the absence of something real. He turned down a quieter block, one of those in-between places where the city's shine faded just enough to remind you of the other side of Christmas. The snow here was untouched, the stores shuttered. That was when he saw them. A woman and a child, silhouetted beneath a flickering lamppost. The child tugged along a worn plastic bag with a stuffed bear poking out. The woman, blonde hair tied low under a knit hat, held his hand tightly. Their coats were thin. Snow clung to their shoulders. A small mountain of bags sat beside them. Miles slowed his steps, his brows furrowed. "Lena?" The woman turned. He hadn't seen her in days. She usually worked the breakfast shift at Penny's Diner, one of the restaurants under his management. Always polite, quick with a smile, and never once late. Her expression shifted instantly. Surprise, embarrassment, and something else he couldn't place. "Miles," she said, her voice tight, polite. "Hi." He looked from her to the child, back to the bags on the ground. "Where are you headed tonight?" There was a pause. "Just trying to figure things out," she said softly, eyes darting away. The little boy, Sam, if he remembered right, tightened his grip on her hand. Then he looked up at Miles, his voice clear, hopeful. "Sir, can you tell Santa we moved, so he can find us and give Mommy a bag of happiness?" The world seemed to still. Miles blinked. He had expected Lena to wave him off, to pretend things were fine, but her child had said what her silence could not. It wasn't just a request, it was a trust fall from a boy who still believed that adults could fix things. He crouched slightly to meet Sam's eyes. "I think," Miles said gently, "Santa would want to know exactly where to find you, especially if your mom has been extra brave this year." Sam beamed. Lena swallowed hard. "Come on," Miles said after a beat. "Let me at least get you both something warm to drink." Lena hesitated. She looked down at Sam. He tugged her sleeve. "I want hot cocoa, Mommy." That did it. A few minutes later, they were sitting in a quiet corner of a late-night cafe. The windows fogged with condensation, outside world muffled by falling snow. Sam sipped cocoa with whipped cream smudged on his nose. Lena's hands curled around her mug like it was her only source of warmth. Miles didn't push. He waited. Eventually, Lena spoke. She told him everything. The eviction, the mounting hospital bills for Sam's asthma treatments, the endless cycle of rent and debt, the nights she'd gone without eating so Sam could. How hard it was to smile at customers when her world was falling apart. Miles listened. He had always thought of Lena as someone solid, someone who just quietly did her job, stayed late when needed, filled in for coworkers without complaint. He'd even seen her feed a stray dog behind the diner once and thought nothing of it, just another kind-hearted soul in the city. But now he saw her. Not just the tired eyes and frayed sleeves, but the strength behind them, the fierce love that carried her forward even when everything else was crumbling. She wasn't weak, she was extraordinary. And still, so proud. "I didn't mean for you to find us like that," she said quietly, watching Sam draw shapes in the window's condensation. "I just didn't know where else to go." "You've been carrying the weight of 2 lives on your shoulders," Miles said. "Most people wouldn't last a week, but you still showed up, still smiled, still helped others." She didn't respond, just stared down into her cocoa. Miles reached across the table, gently, not assuming. He touched her hand, cold, tense, small in his, and said quietly, "You don't have to go through this alone tonight." Lena looked up. Their eyes met. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel invisible. And as snow continued to fall outside, something subtle shifted between them. Not charity, not pity. A beginning. After the cocoa was finished and Sam's eyes had grown heavy, Miles stood and quietly slipped his coat on. "There's a place nearby," he said gently, glancing at Lena without pressure. "Warm, safe, just for tonight. Think of it as an early bonus for working the holiday shift." Lena hesitated, her fingers tightening around the strap of Sam's worn backpack. "Miles, I appreciate everything, but I can't accept that. I don't want." "Mommy," Sam's voice was barely more than a whisper. He was leaning against her, eyelids fluttering. "Can we stay here just one night? Just until Santa finds us?" The world paused again. Lena looked down at her son, and something inside her cracked open. Her shoulders sagged with quiet surrender. She gave the smallest nod. Miles didn't say anything more. He just offered her a gentle look and motioned toward the door. They walked a few blocks in silence, the snow crunching under their feet. Lena carried Sam now, his arms wrapped around her neck, already half asleep. The world was quiet, save for the occasional car passing by and the distant echo of a Christmas carol from some shop window. The motel was modest, an older building tucked behind a laundromat, but it was clean, and the lobby smelled faintly of pine and cinnamon. Miles spoke quietly to the woman at the front desk, someone he clearly knew. He handed her a card and said, "They don't need to know who paid. Just make sure the room is warm." He never looked at Lena as he said it. No performance, no expectation of gratitude. When they reached the room, he opened the door, flicked on the lights, and stepped aside. 2 twin beds, a small heater in the corner already humming, a framed painting of a snowy hillside, simple, safe. Lena gently laid Sam on one of the beds, pulling off his little boots and tucking the thin blanket around him. He didn't stir. When she turned around, Miles was already standing in the hallway, holding the door. "Sleep well, Lena." She didn't know what to say, but he didn't wait for an answer. The door closed softly behind him. That night, Lena sat by the window long after the room had gone quiet. She had let her blonde hair down, its strands soft against her cheeks. Her hands were wrapped around a paper cup she had refilled with tap water, still warm from the faucet. Outside, snowflakes fell like a silent choir. She looked over at her son's peaceful sleeping form, then back to the falling snow. Maybe, just maybe, good people still exist. The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds. The room, though small, was filled with soft light. Lena sat up slowly, adjusting her sweater, and noticed something on the doorknob. A paper bag. Inside, one neatly wrapped piece of toast, a small carton of milk, and a folded slip of paper. "To brave mornings and kinder winters." Lena stared at the handwriting, simple and clean. She pressed her hand to her mouth and closed her eyes. Her throat tightened, but no tears fell. Not this time. Later that morning, after dropping Sam off at his first day at the public preschool, granted by a special community scholarship program, Lena returned to the diner for her usual morning shift. Everything felt oddly normal. Coffee brewed, the smell of eggs filled the air, customers murmured their orders like any other day. She didn't expect to see Miles there, but he was. Not in a suit this time, just a dark sweater, sleeves rolled up, sipping coffee at the far end of the counter. She paused, took a breath, then walked over. "About last night," she began, her voice steady. "Thank you. I'm not good at accepting help, but we really needed it." Miles looked up, smiling softly. It wasn't help. He took another sip of coffee, then added, "It was humanity." Lena let out a quiet breath, and for the first time in a long while, she let herself believe she was allowed to receive, without shame, without guilt, just kindness. The following Monday, Lena came home from her morning shift to find a folded envelope slid beneath the door of the motel room. Her heart jumped. She opened it slowly, fearing bad news. Instead, inside was a single note, written in neat, familiar handwriting, and a small apartment key taped beside it. "Just a safe place for the night. We can figure out the rest together. M." There was also an address, a small building 2 blocks from the diner. At first, Lena stared at the paper in disbelief. Her first instinct was to refuse it. It felt too generous, too much. She'd only just begun to stand on her own 2 feet again. She didn't want to trade one kind of helplessness for another. But then Sam came up behind her, rubbing sleep from his eyes, asking, "Is this the new house, Mommy?" And suddenly, the decision felt clear. That afternoon, she visited the address. The building was old but well kept. The door to their unit opened into a compact space with wood floors, soft yellow walls, and 2 windows that let in the winter sun. There was a small table in the kitchen, a heater that worked, and a second-hand sofa that looked like it had been carefully cleaned. Lena was still standing there, absorbing it all, when her phone buzzed with a message from Miles. "Rent's covered for 3 months. After that, it'll come out of your check. No charity, just time." She sat down slowly, phone still in her hand, and whispered, "Okay." Later that evening, Sam wandered into the bedroom, where 2 single beds were freshly made with real blankets. He ran to the nearest one, flopped down, and squealed, "Mommy, look, Santa will definitely find us now." Lena stood in the doorway, hand over her mouth. That night, when Sam had fallen asleep wrapped in his favorite, but threadbare blanket, Lena sat by the window, staring out at the quiet street. For the first time in what felt like forever, her breath came easy, not from certainty, but from relief. A door had opened, and this time she dared to walk through it. When her next paycheck arrived 2 weeks later, Lena noticed something strange. The total was higher than usual. At first, she thought it was a mistake, but when she scanned the small type at the bottom, she saw a new line added. "Adjustment, single mother benefit, staff initiative." Her heart pounded. She approached Miles later that day, trying not to look flustered. "You did something to my pay." He was wiping down the counter, not even looking up. "I didn't touch it." "But—" He finally glanced at her and gave a half smile. "Let's just say, people like you deserve a little more wind at their back." Lena blinked. Miles added softly, "You've been lifting others for years. Let someone hold the ladder now." From that day on, he never brought it up again. He never made her feel like she owed him anything. He let her work, raise her son, and live in that little apartment without hovering or intruding. He gave her space. He gave her dignity. And for Lena, that meant more than any check ever could. Sam, however, had no filter. Every time he saw Miles at the diner, he'd light up and shout, "It's Santa's helper." Customers would glance over and laugh. Miles would tip his imaginary red hat and reply, "Don't tell anyone, okay? Santa's secret agent rules." Sam would nod seriously, sealing the deal with a pinky swear. Lena would shake her head, hiding her smile. This was a different kind of kindness than she had known. Quiet, steady, no strings. It didn't ask anything in return. And slowly, gently, something began to grow inside her again, something that had been buried deep beneath fear and debt and years of holding it all together. Hope. The rain had been falling all morning, cold and relentless. By mid-afternoon, the diner was warm with the scent of fresh bread and coffee, a sharp contrast to the wet gray outside. Lena was wiping down the front counter when the bell above the door jingled. She looked up and blinked in surprise. Miles stepped in, soaked through. His coat clung to him, darkened by the rain. His hair was dripping, and he looked like he hadn't slept much. "Forgot my umbrella," he muttered with a tired smile, brushing rain off his sleeves. Lena noticed the faint redness in his nose, the way he cleared his throat twice in a row, not his usual composed self. "Sit," she said. more firmly than expected. He raised an eyebrow, but obeyed, settling into a corner booth. She disappeared into the kitchen without another word. 15 minutes later, she returned with a tray. On it, a bowl of steaming ginger porridge, a slice of toast, and a mug of hot lemon water with honey. Miles stared at the meal, blinking. Lena set it down and crossed her arms. "You look like you're 2 sneezes away from passing out. Eat." He picked up the spoon and took a bite. Silence, then another, then a slow exhale. "This," he said, voice rough, "tastes like something I forgot I needed." Lena gave a half smile and returned to work without waiting for thanks. Later, after the rush, Miles remained in the booth with a blanket over his shoulders that someone, probably Sam, had dragged from the back room. Lena brought him a fresh cup of tea and sat across from him. He looked at her. "Where did you learn to cook like that?" She shrugged. "I used to want to be a musician. Went to school for it even. But then Sam came early. I dropped everything." She hesitated before adding, "My parents were gone by then. It's just been me and him." Miles nodded slowly. "My folks passed away when I was young, raised by my aunt, but you never really forget being alone." There was a pause. Not uncomfortable, just quiet. Then Miles added, "It's strange, isn't it? How people think being in charge means you don't get tired." Lena smiled faintly. "It's stranger how people assume being strong means you don't need anyone." Over the following weeks, Miles began stopping by more often. Sometimes it was to check inventory. Sometimes just to sit at the counter after hours and share a coffee with Lena while Sam napped in the back. One night, Sam fell asleep sitting upright on the bench. Miles walked over, gently picked him up, and carried him to the small cot in the storage room. He covered him with a blanket and tucked the stuffed bear Lena had brought from home under his arm. Lena watched from the doorway. Neither of them said anything. They didn't need to. A few days later, during a particularly busy shift, Lena misread a catering order and sent out the wrong menu for a holiday event. It was a disaster. The client called, furious. Lena felt the color drain from her face. She stood frozen in the kitchen, dread sinking in her chest. This was the kind of mistake that got people fired, especially people who'd already needed a second chance. Before she could say anything, Miles walked in, picked up the phone, and spoke calmly to the client. He apologized for the error, his error, and offered a full discount and free dessert vouchers for everyone. When he hung up, Lena rushed over. "Why did you do that? It was my mistake." He shrugged. "We're a team." "But it's not about being perfect," he said gently. "It's about giving enough of a damn to fix what's broken." She looked around. Several employees had been listening from behind the prep line. None of them had ever seen Miles like this before. Not the quiet, distant owner they'd known, but a man who stood between mistakes and punishment, who had his team's back, even when it cost him. Lena didn't say thank you, but when she walked past him later, she placed a small, folded napkin on the counter. Inside was a scribbled note in her tidy handwriting. "For what you forgot you needed, L." Snowflakes drifted lazily past the frosted windows of the diner. Twinkle lights wrapped around the windows glowed softly, casting golden patterns onto the floor. Inside, warmth buzzed through every corner, laughter from the kitchen, music playing low, the smell of cinnamon and fresh bread in the air. A week before Christmas, Miles entered quietly during the early evening shift. He walked up to Sam, who was sitting at a corner booth drawing on a napkin with a stubby crayon, and placed a small wooden box on the table. "For you," Miles said. Sam looked up wide-eyed. "Is it from Santa?" Miles crouched down beside him and smiled. "Sort of. He asked me to deliver it early." Sam carefully opened the box. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a small card and a single, golden pencil etched with music notes. The card read, "Santa found you. He told me you've been very brave." "This pencil is for your first song, for Mommy." Sam blinked and looked up at Miles. "Really?" Miles nodded. "He said your heart was too kind to miss." Lena, who had been drying glasses behind the counter, watched the moment unfold in stunned silence. Her throat tightened. Later that evening, when the customers had thinned and Sam had fallen asleep in the back, Lena approached Miles at the corner of the counter. She placed her hand gently on the wooden box. "Why do you do so much for us?" Miles looked up slowly. His voice was calm but steady. "Because you reminded me what real strength looks like." He hesitated, then added, "And because you made me want to be someone a little boy could believe in." For a moment, Lena could not speak. The words settled into the space between them, quiet but unshakable. That same week, Lena began doing something unexpected. Every evening, after the main dinner rush, she would bring out a large pot and start cooking simple dishes, hearty soups, stews, whatever the pantry allowed. She cooked not because she was told to, but because it felt right. She began calling it the second dinner, served to staff and anyone who lingered too long, too quietly, with too little. Her cooking brought people closer. Staff stayed after shifts, chatting over bowls of her warm lentil soup or leftover pasta. Strangers felt welcome. Even Miles lingered longer than he used to, content just sitting nearby with his cup of black coffee. One night, as he slurped the last spoon of her sweet potato stew, he leaned back and said with a chuckle, "We're all just chasing your soup now." Lena laughed softly, brushing hair from her face, cheeks flushed. A few nights before Christmas, as the sky darkened and wind picked up, the door of the diner opened with a soft chime. A man stepped in, middle-aged, unshaven, wrapped in layers of clothes that looked more like blankets than coats. He glanced around, clearly unsure whether he belonged. Lena noticed him instantly. She said nothing, just turned back to the counter, packed up the last 2 slices of day-old banana bread, poured a fresh cup of coffee, and walked over. "On the house," she said gently, setting the items in front of him. "It's cold out." The man looked at her, speechless, then nodded, murmured a faint, "Thank you," and settled into the corner. Miles had seen the whole thing. He waited a moment, then approached Lena quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You didn't stop being the girl who helps others," he said. "You just forgot she was a hero." Lena turned toward him, surprised. He didn't smile this time. He just looked at her with something far deeper than admiration, something like reverence. Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside, it felt like Christmas had already arrived. Not the version with glittering trees or expensive gifts, but the kind that wrapped around your ribs when someone saw the very best in you and believed it was still there. It started with whispers in the back of the diner. They thought she could not hear. "She's only getting extra shifts because she's the boss's favorite. Single mom with a sad story. No wonder she gets away with everything. Must be nice to have a CEO wrapped around your finger." Lena overheard the murmurs as she stood by the sink, scrubbing a pan harder than necessary. Her heart dropped, not because the words were cruel, but because a part of her believed them. Was she becoming dependent? Had she gone from surviving on her own to leaning too much? That night, after putting Sam to bed, Lena stared at the glowing city skyline outside the small apartment window. It was warm, safe, and full of peace, but it did not feel earned. She sat at the table and began to write. A letter, a request for temporary leave. No explanation, no drama, just space. 3 days passed. She stayed home, took Sam to the park, baked cookies, smiled for him, but something in her chest felt unsteady, like her sense of self had cracked. On the 4th day, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find Miles standing there. No smile, just quiet eyes. In his hand was an envelope. He held it out. "I heard you stepped away. I figured maybe this would help you see what I see." Lena opened the envelope with hesitant fingers. Inside was a letter, typed, signed. Recommendation, letter. Subject, Lena Hart. Title, For the strongest person I've ever worked with. She read the first line. In all my years managing people, I've never seen someone carry more on their shoulders and still show up with kindness every day. She is the kind of strength that doesn't shout, but lifts others without being asked. Lena's hands trembled. She is not dependent. She is not fragile. She is not here because of pity. She is here because the world needs more people like her. By the time she finished, tears blurred the words. She looked up at Miles, unable to speak. He added gently, Lena, I never helped you because I felt sorry for you. I helped because you deserve better, and I stayed because I wanted to, not to save you, but to stand beside you. Lena pressed the letter to her chest. In her silence, something shifted, an old belief melted. Not everyone wants to control you. Some people just want you to be happy. She stepped forward and hugged him, tight, quiet, real. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that kindness was not weakness, and that love could look like respect. The little diner on the corner was glowing. Strings of golden lights curled around the windows, soft carols played from an old jukebox in the corner, and the smell of cinnamon rolls filled the air. It was Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year since the night Lena and Sam had nowhere to go. But tonight was different. The diner was full of warmth, laughter, and people who had become more than coworkers, more than customers. They were family. At the center of it all was a small, upright piano. Sam, now 5, sat in front of it with a paper snowflake pinned to his sweater. His legs dangled above the floor, and his fingers hovered nervously over the keys. Lena stood to the side in a soft white dress, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders. She smiled, watching her son take a deep breath and begin. The notes were gentle, slightly uneven, but full of heart. He played a melody he had spent weeks practicing, one he titled all by himself, Dear Santa, We Found Home. No one spoke. Even the clatter of forks and plates stopped as the diner listened. And when Sam reached the final note, the room broke into warm applause. Miles walked up to the piano, crouching next to Sam with a proud smile. Hey buddy, he whispered, holding out a small velvet box. Can you be my helper for a big surprise? Sam's eyes lit up. He nodded and took the box, holding it tightly as Miles turned and walked toward Lena. She looked up, confused but smiling. Miles didn't kneel. He didn't make a speech. He just took her hand, steady and sure, and said softly, Can I stay? Not as your boss, as your family. Lena blinked, caught somewhere between a laugh and tears. But before she could answer, Sam jumped in from the side. Only if you bring hot cocoa every night. The whole diner laughed, and Miles chuckled, looking at Lena with eyes that said everything. Outside, snow had just started falling again, covering the sidewalks in a soft white layer. Lena, Miles, and Sam stepped out into the quiet evening. Miles slipped off his coat and draped it over both of them, mother and son, pulling them close as they walked. They did not need matching last names. They did not need perfect plans. Family, after all, is not always made by blood. Sometimes it is made by choice. And that Christmas, under the snowfall and city lights, they chose each other. If this story of resilience, quiet, kindness, and a little boy's belief in miracles touched your heart, don't forget to hit that hype button and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. Every week, we bring you emotional tales that remind us family isn't always who we're born to, but who we choose. Let Lena, Sam, and Miles's Christmas journey inspire you to believe in second chances and the gentle power of human connection. Thank you for watching.